Are red-crested skinks any good in patch 5.1? Yes, they're good, we're just focused on how much, and the fact that they're more fragile than a lot of your other options. Auto-resolve hates them, and for somewhat valid reasons which we'll get into. But they deliver at their intended role, and considering they're recruited from a tier 1 building, I think you're getting a lot. Also, Tehenhauin busts them to crazy levels, but that's for another video. Recruited for 575 gold and 144 upkeep default. What you get as not Tehenhauin is 120 entities with 8,040 health between them for 67 health per entity. That is, the unit has basically the same HP as its 160 entity counterpart. That's not high praise. Armor is 30, which is distinctly average for Lizard's skin. Leadership starts at 62, better than cohorts. Speed is identical to them at 46, with charge speed 52. Melee attack starts at 26, and even without the early game skink tech, they inflict poison in melee. As in, this includes multiplayer. Attack interval is 4.6, slower than usual, and not because the animations are all super quick either. They're using great weapons full time. No splash damage. Melee defense is 19 default, and yes, this is markedly lower than skink cohorts. Weapon strength is given as 24, split between 5 base and 19 armor piercing, as in they actually do one less than cohort's default, but it's almost all shoved into armor piercing. Charge bonus is 21, which is 11 better than a skink cohort, and mass is, it says 80 curiously, that's light. So, for traits, they have primal instincts, so they hit harder when below 50% health, a benefit from the soft rework that did not exist back in the day. You've probably heard of the spawn-kin synergy with Kroq-Gar's imbuing causes fear, and thus immunity to fear, but this unit always had frenzy, which, while leadership remains above 50% of base, grants plus 10 melee attack, which is enormous for this unit, and plus 10% weapon strength and charge bonus with immunity to psychology generally. Given the low general stats, this is a welcome boost that really helps. Finally, lately they have immunity to contact effects. That's not just poison. It's to dazed, sundering, burnt, frostbite, monstrous impact, blinded, and so on. That's a lot of effects in the game. Even if they are relatively fragile, this unit will give you its all until cut down to a pretty substantial degree. That is what you're paying for. In the redline skills, Skirmisher, the same source of bonuses as the Missile Infantry, offers plus 6 melee attack and plus 6 melee defense and plus 12% weapon strength at 3 pips. Note that this is without anything from special boosts. Spawn-kin grants an additional plus 5 leadership, great for keeping frenzy up under more adverse circumstances, plus 5 more melee defense, and 15% missile resistance, dampening the ability of ranged enemies to weaken your shieldless skinks. The tech tree offers exactly the same benefits as the cohorts received, minus any relevance of missile strength, but since they already have poison melee, the first tech is completely wasted on them. In contrast, Vanguard deployment is a huge boost, giving you a proper melee unit able to deliver serious offensive clout against squishy enemy lines if the enemy deploys too close to the normal front position. I mean, yes, you have skirmishers able to get out there, but short of using a special stance, you don't usually get to use melee up in the enemy's face like this. It gives options, and options are good. Too bad Kroq-Gars don't get this benefit too. Anyway, airing the rest from the last video, but the key is extra speed and plus 10% more weapon strength, all good. How do you use red-crested skinks? Well, in the theme armies, the advice is still largely the same, they're just even better. For regular ones, even without any redline investment, they still have baseline attack higher than Saurus Warriors thanks to Frenzy, and much more than Saurus Spears unless it's a large target. Their chin is much weaker in practice. Their chin gets a lot better with redline skill investment, but realistically that won't happen unless you are trying to use skirmishing in your army, hence the name of the skill. Red-crested skinks are the fist in your gauntlet for a skirmishing army. Fast enough to rush in and deliver pain, nimble enough to maintain that speed. Even though they're far more expensive than regular cohorts, and still more than javelin units, in Warhammer 3 melee has a relatively easier time, so aside from the ever-constant threat of losing them, they will output damage. They are essentially armor-piercing fanatics, but not unbreakable and also not literally zero armor. Your best bet is to either use them as extra damage dealers operating with Saurus help, etc., but not suffering the entire brunt of the attack. And yes, Kroq-Gar support is ideal for this, but they're a lot harder to recruit. Or you use them like Slayers. except for their anti-armor, not anti-large, charging into engaged units, even much more elite units, to literally bang them up. The low chin means auto-resolve hates them, but it's a challenge keeping them healthy in normal situations too. The computer knows they're relatively valuable and relatively vulnerable. Still, the reason they're relatively valuable is because they dish out punishment. You need to take advantage of that. The biggest weakness of the unit is its vulnerability to cavalry and chariots, having no charge defense versus large or any anti-large variant at all. That's mostly a worry with the Tehenhauin super early. For everyone else, just bring a few saw spears. And frankly, anything that's stiffer will help, be they Kroq-Gars, Bastiladons, anything. All you need to do is disperse the damage. Of course, if you do invest in the red line, and they do get to rank 7 and get a bunch of techs on their side, they're entirely good enough to brutalize a lot of foes they shouldn't be able to, and will have the melee defense to hang on like they're Gor-Rok or something. You didn't get them to tar pit. There are other units for that purpose, but hanging around means inflicting armor-piercing damage on the regular. That is the true strength of the unit, and if allowed, it will humiliate enemy forces with raw fanaticism and large blunt trauma objects. In other words, defensive iffiness aside, this unit can punch way above its weight. Just realize that enemy forces will chip them down, and without heavy replenishment or unit merging, it's a bit of easy come, easy go with them. But recruiting from a super easy to acquire recruitment building means you can grab a couple and keep on going until they die or you find something better. Take care, and have fun squashing bugs. I mean rats.